Okay, good evening. I was waiting for the rest to come, but apparently we just have two students. Please let me know if you can hear me now. Mr. Arif and Mr. Asadullah. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So let's start our chapter 9. As you know, this is the last, not the last week that you're supposed to submit your assignment. If you have two subjects with me, if you have one subject you were supposed to do last week, this week definitely will be 25% deduction for those that they're gonna have just one subject and still be late. We still accept up to next week, but after that definitely we won't accept any assignments. Additional 25% will be deducted if somebody comes later than that. Just one more thing, as you know, I received an email from WWS that next week we won't have any class. Please let me know if you are here the same news. Yes, apparently next week the classes from 8th of August to 18th of August classes will be off. Means from this Thursday, coming Thursday till next. So next week there won't be any class, but next 2 weeks we will have one more class. So that is why it's based on the basically WWS arrangement. We will keep going with the same pattern that we have. I expect everybody to submit the assignment by today to not have any deduction. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Arif, on endorsing this fact and acknowledging the same message. Let's start chapter 9, charismatic and transformational leadership is our chapter 9. Hello, Mr. Harun. Welcome to class. So learning objectives: understand how the theories of charismatic and transformational leadership differ from earlier leadership theories. Understand similarities and differences among major theories of charismatic and transformational leadership. Understand why attributions of charisma are generally determined by the leader, the follower, and the situation. Understanding what traits, behavior, influences, process are involved in charismatic and transformational leadership, as well as why charismatic leadership can result in undesirable consequences for followers and organization. What research methods have been used to evaluate theories of transformational leadership and charismatic leadership. And the major finding in empirical research on the effects of charismatic and transformational leadership will be discussed as well. Okay, Mr. Harun Sahab, it's all right. And how to apply the theories to become more effective as a leader. So let's start. As usual, we're going to go through different theories. Early theories about charismatic leadership. Max Weber is one of those initial founders of the whole theory. Divinely inspired gift. They were saying this as like some people that they have this basically gift occurs during a social crisis. They usually can show themselves during a social crisis, like what Gandhi has been doing, for example, in India. Leader emerges with a radical vision that offers a solution, as also another part of the whole theory. So you can see leader is going to act as a solution for what happened in crisis, and they were seeing the whole leader, charismatic leader, as a divinely inspired, gifted person. Transforming leadership, on the other side, transforming leadership is another, for example, completing theory for the whole charismatic. Burns' book on political leadership, he started with Burns. Transforming leadership appeals to the moral values of followers to raise their conscientiousness and mobilize their energies. Transactional leadership motivates followers by appealing to their self-interest and exchanging benefits. So you can see the difference between the transformational leadership or transforming leadership and transactional leadership. Transforming leadership appeals to the moral values of followers to raise their conscientiousness and mobilize their energy, while here you can see it's more on, and transactional leadership is more on the self-interest and exchanging benefits for basically followers. Attribution theory of charismatic leadership is another theory which is one of those basic leadership theories throughout the whole basically charismatic leadership. It sees leadership as from the leader traits and behavior point of view, advocate the vision highly discrepant from the status quo. It's more on maneuvering on this, basically act in unconventional ways. People that they have this kind of characteristics and traits are going to be those charismatic leaders. As you can see, advocate a vision highly discrepant from the status quo, the normal people. They're saying things that normal people cannot see, act in a very unconventional way. You see again different from radical way, which is different from the rest of people. Make self-sacrifices to reach their goals and so on. So this is the traits and behavior of the leaders from charismatic point of view, attribution theory of charismatic leadership. Appear confident about their proposal. This is another one. Inspire them with emotional appeals. They usually inspire their followers by emotional appeals, like what Hitler was doing. You see, emotionally made German soldiers inspired and make them do what he wants them to do. See opportunities that others fail to recognize. Again, leaders, one of the basic charismatic basically traits and behavior of them is they can see things that normal people cannot. There is an influence process, or there are influence processes as well, personal identification and internalization about the whole concept. What you know about yourself, how you can be inspired, and how you can bring that concept to yourself. Internalization is of seeing things from that point of view. Leader, you see, as a leader, you can give some basic hints to your follower, and the follower can be, after knowing who they are, they can internalize it in themselves and try to be inspired, or actually being inspired and do what actually the whole leadership is all about. Charismatic leadership is all, which is inspiring all of the followers in the best possible way. Facilitating conditions on the other side, it's talking about you can achieve followers, disengagement, and also crisis situation, which these enchantments and crisis situations are when you create a situation that you can basically act as a facilitator. Like, for example, there are conditions, there are situations, there are circumstances. A leader actually helps to make things easier and more facilitated. So this is another aspect. There is a self-concept theory of charismatic leadership as well. Again, they are all important indicators of charismatic. So first of all, you need to know what are the basic signs of charismatic leader. So in this theory, they try to find out basically what are the basic traits. Leader traits and behavior will be this. Leader usually articulating an appealing vision, and not only having a specific vision which is appealing toward the rest, or very higher than the rest, they can articulate what they have in their mind as a vision towards. That is one of the traits. Using a strong expressive forms of communication when articulating the vision. This is another aspect. As you can see, leaders have this basic phenomenon ability of creating a strong form of communication with their followers. Again, look at Hitler as a very, very famous charismatic leader. How after his speech or his lecture, people will feel 100% inspired and motivated and do what he wants them to do. Taking personal risk and making self-sacrifices to attain the vision. As you can see in previous theories, we saw this as well. Communicating high expectations, expressing confidence in followers, modeling behavior consistent with the vision, managing follower impressions of the leader. This is really important. If a leader can manage followers' impressions of the leader, he wants to make them actually take him in a way that he wants to take him, and that is what is important. You see, in leadership, this is another aspect of leadership and how it works. Building identification with a group of organization and empowering followers as well. Empowering, which is coming from delegation of authority, has to be there. In continue with self-concept theory of charismatic leadership, the influence process is going to be kind of different. Personal identification, again, is there. Social identification is going to be added in comparison with the previous theory. Means who you are as a person and who you are as a nation or as a part of society, or how is your society, which group of social people you belong to. Again, internalization is there. After knowing who you are, you have to internalize the inspiration that you got from the leader, or has to happen that way. Individual self-efficacy and collective efficacy. Like what I think I'm capable of as an individual after internalization, and also what we think we are capable of as a nation, as a society, as a collective group of people around each other. Facilitating condition, leader's vision is congruent with existing follower values and identity. This is really important. What leader thinks is what more or less followers are thinking, and task rules defined in ideologic terms that appeal to followers. This type of leadership, as you can see, is more or less about moral aspect. For example, religious leader who has a charismatic power can be part of this this type of charismatic leadership, which is self-concept theory of charisma. And crisis situation. If there is any crisis, that leader again and raise help the problem to be solved. You look at the world, there are so many revolutions that happened that there were some charismatic leaders came to the picture, got the revolution, and made it happen. If you look at all around the world, you can see these people and how they affected their own nation, not only by inspiring their followers to think about themselves one more time, think about the society that they're in and how they can do things that maybe other people cannot. Other conception of charismatic leader, they are this as well. We have psychodynamic processes, social contagion and charisma, close and distant charisma, and routinization of charisma. There are different conceptions around the whole charismatic things. Look at here, comparison of 4 charismatic theories that we had so far. We're going to see how they see things from different point of view. Attributes of theory. We have attributed charismatic, self-concept charismatic, psychodynamic, and social contagion. Okay, 4 different ones. Look at them, how they see things from different point of view. From influence process, personal identification is in all of them except social contagion. Value internalization is in first 2, but not in next 2. You can see some of them are common, some of them not at all. Again, look at for example, facilitating condition, crisis or de-enchantment is attributed charisma is yes, self-concept yes, psychodynamic yes, and also social contagion yes. While if you look at the complex significant task, attributed charisma no, self-concept theory yes, psychodynamic no, and also social contagion no. So you can see some of these items are going to be common, some of them are going to be absolutely different. This is another aspect of the whole, so this comparison of the whole thing, how 4 charismatic theories can be compared. This table by itself can show so many differences. What are the consequences of charismatic leadership? This is charismatic leadership is not all positive. Definitely there are some consequences. You have positive and negative charismatics. Determined by examining the consequences by followers. This is how we can see whether it's positive or negative. We can examine the consequences for followers, whether followers reach somewhere positive or they were failed to reach to their goals, personal goals, social goals, and so on. Another way of seeing whether it's positive or negative is negative charismatics have a personalized power orientation, while a positive charismatic have a socialized power orientation. You can see again how negative and positive can be distinguished simply by looking at the result as well as the nature of charismatic. If it's just coming from a personalized power, it's most probably negative charismatics, while when it comes from socialized power, what you have in terms of position and people's approach toward you, that will be socialized power, and that is the positive charismatic. Okay, so consequences of charismatic leadership, the dark side of charisma. If you want to be more in detail about the dark side of charismatic leadership, this is all about that. Being in awe of the leader reduce good suggestion by followers. This is really, really important. You may end up having, because the charismatic leader thinks he knows almost everything, so, or he's the powerful one, most probably he's not going to get any suggestion from the other followers. So that is one of the negative ones. Desire for leader acceptance inhibits criticism by followers. So this is exactly important. The leaders are not really into getting the criticism by followers, and that kind of creates again a highly biased leadership. Adoration by followers, creation the delusions of leader. See what happened in basically country Libya for Muhammad Gaddafi is exactly this. Adoration by followers create actually a delusional fact for Muhammad, the Gaddafi, simply by thinking that he has a power that normal human being doesn't have. So the time that he was almost, he was captured, he was caught by people, and he was about to be executed. He couldn't believe. He said, like, he was talking to those people and saying that you are my sons and you have to, and he couldn't believe it. Another thing that you can say was part of his delusion was he created his own book, which was Green Book, and kind of put it beside other, for example, religious, highly respected books, and he was saying that this is another book that you can. So when followers more than enough give adoration to a leader, then that can cause delusion as well, which is a negative thing. Excessive confidence and optimism blind the leader to real danger. This is one of the most common ones. When you get more than overconfident, you will end up not seeing the reality and definitely cause your followers lots of damages and problems. And denial of problem and failure reduces organizational learning. The fact that as a leader you don't want to accept that there are mistakes, there are problems, you may end up having some no chance for your organization to learn from its mistakes and act better and develop itself. And continue with that, it's quite risky. Grandiose projects are more likely to fail. This is again another aspect of that. Taking complete credit for success alienates some key followers. Sometimes because you see you're the leader and anything happens, you want to take the whole credit out of that. A very good famous example for this is the FBI founder in the United States. He was one of the main FBI directors, was famous of being there for a long time, collecting information about top executive powers in the country, and create this certain phobia for everybody that he has very good vital information about them, so he could control them. This gentleman actually, on the other side, basically had this problem of, because he was a very good successful leader, all the time he wanted to take credit out of every successful thing that could be done, and that made his followers to not really actually feel alienated and then not properly following after that. Impulsive, non-traditional behavior creates enemies as well as believers. This again, you cannot have 100% everybody in your as your fan. You may end up having develop some enemies, create some enemies. Dependence on the leader inhibits development of component successor. It's highly depending on the leader inhibits for the successor, and on the other side, failure to develop successors creates an eventual leadership crisis. You just imagine what happened to North Korea. First two leaders were more powerful in terms of charismatic personality, but the last one, who is the one who is in charge now, and you can see the last king from the Kim family, is not as strong as his father and his grandpa. But that's why you can see a leadership crisis in North Korea. Since he came to the power, there 2 or 3 main controversial possible challenge with the US and the rest of the world, and simply because the guy in charge doesn't simply know how to act as a leader. He's much younger and he got to power very young, so that's why these problems are happening. Transformational leadership. Leader behaviors are this type of behaviors. They idealize influence, individualized considerations for each and every employee or follower, inspirational motivation. They give motivation in a way that can inspire the followers in the best possible. Intellectual stimulation. Stimulation is also another aspect of these transformational behaviors. But on the other side, transactional behaviors of the leaders can be this: contingent reward, by giving them rewards here and over there; active management by exceptions; and passive management by exceptions. Again, they may have any of these approaches. In continuing with transformational leadership, influence process is more on transactional leadership and instrumental compliance, by using a compliance as an instrument among the followers to do the things that you want to do. Again, as usual, we have this internalization and personal identification as 2 main subcomponents of the whole situational analysis of that transformational leadership as well, which is how you stimulate or situationally stimulate your followers to do things. Transformational leadership, in continue with that, facilitating conditions. Some aspects of transformational leadership are relevant in most, if not all, situations. This is what is usually happening in transformational leadership. As you can see, leaders are acting as like the main inspirer. Dynamic, unstable environment that increases the need for change. This is part of leadership as well. You're dealing with an environment which is very, very volatile and it's changing every single day. So you have to come up with a new style to be able to handle it. Leaders are encouraged to be flexible and innovative. This is another part of the transformational. If they want to survive as a transformational leaders, they really need to be flexible and innovative. Followers' traits and values are also super important. How they can cope with such a leadership. Do they have the capacity of having that leadership as their main leader? Because they're going to be inspirationally stimulated and idealizedly, basically personal. You have to have all of these personalized approach and so on. Primary types of research on the theories. These are all of these primary researches that they were done on these theories. They've done survey research, laboratory experiments, field experiments, descriptive and comparative studies, intensive cases. There were some basic research that they get questionnaire, ask normal people to judge. Sometimes they have some lab experiences on certain group, field experiments in a real situation, descriptive or comparative studies, comparing different leaders, describing them, doing all of those explanations, as well as doing comparison between different leaders and different, basically, a style of them doing this in all around the world. as well as intensive cases. Like, for example, there are lots of research just on how Hitler was, as a charismatic leader, was basically leading the whole Germany, and how he could take the Germany to the place that Germany went. You see, in very short period of time, he could almost revolutionize the whole country by creating certain Hitler, Gandhi, for example, Abraham Lincoln. They are all different famous leaders in the world that they could change basically the fate of a huge number of people, that they were their followers and they were inspired by them intellectually as well as inspirationally stimulated by them, and they have done things that these leaders wanted them to do. If you look at Mao Zedong as a famous leader in China, what he has done in China and changed the whole fate of Chinese. And for one almost century, less than one century, definitely the whole China was influenced by the way that he was thinking and so on. Still, China is a actually socialized, basically based country, but has the capitalism approach. It's a combination of capitalism, socialism, and communism, and they have their own basically style that they call Maoism. All because there was a leader in a period of time in the history that could change people. So you can see, if you want to look at these theories, they're all inspired whether by a basic research inductively, or there was a theory and deductively they were surveyed, like what has been done during the history about any of them, or what happened to them, how they could do what they did in the history. All of them, they are part of the different researches. If we want to talk about transformational leadership versus charismatic leadership, this is how the whole differences are going to come to the picture. Differences and similarities between the theories. There are some definitely charismatic and transformational leadership theories, commonalities, and there are some differences. Evaluation of the theories. If you look at the theories, available evidence support charismatic and transformational leadership theories. Both of them are highly supported by available evidence. Means there have been different leaders and leaderships in the world in these two possible styles. So they are perfectly real and practical. Several of their propositions can be found in earlier theories. There are lots of propositions in these theories that they have been existed in the theory in existence before, and they became revolutionized, and they became what now we see as transformational and charismatic leadership. And old one, for example, we just have them in new bottle. Means these theories, they were all there, but nowadays we just put them under a new name. That's why they call the old one in a new bottle. Conceptual weaknesses of these leadership theories are, first of all, they are ambiguous. They're ambiguous constructs, so it's kind of ambiguous. There are lots of ambiguity about them. Not all of the borders are clear, so you don't exactly know how to basically 100% measure it, but you can more or less comprehensively see what the whole leadership is all about. Insufficient description of explanatory process. There are not enough description for the whole explanatory process of this leadership. By the way, we know there are lots of examples about these theories all around the world, but again, this is one of the problems. Narrow focus on dyadic process. Do you remember dyadic process, which was a double vision process that we discussed it before? In these two leadership is not really common, simply because it's more maneuvering on the leader's perspective rather than followers as well. Insufficient specification of situational variable is another example of why there are some conceptual weaknesses to this theory. We don't have those situational variables. Significantly, what are the main situational variables that actually can influence this transformational or charismatic leadership? For example, if you are a perfect charismatic leader, by any chance you have some followers follow, what conditions can be basically there in the environment that can change actually this transformational leadership drastically? Bias toward heroic conception of leadership is kind of biased as well. As well as you see, heroic conception of leadership is not there. It's just like giving a specific charismatic specification to the leaders that none of the previous theories have been giving. Overemphasize on universal leader attributes that are not relevant for all situations. Yeah, you see, actually, this is another aspect of that. This theory of transformation, charismatic leadership, they're most trying to find some commonalities among all of the leaders all around the board, without considering the fact that situational factor is also one of the most important factors. You may have some leaders in, for example, that they are in the United States, they're trying to get what they're looking for. Definitely these leaders are not going to exactly do what, for example, a Chinese leader do to stimulate and inspire its followers. So there are different aspects as well toward that. So what we can see is basically as a leader, you're supposed to do things that your situation wants you to do. If your situation is very, for example, critical situation. For example, you're dealing with a war, or you're in a depression or recession, or anything like that. Definitely, that situation affects your leadership. No matter how charismatic you are, how much your transformational leadership is your main, for example, approach toward the things to be done. Still, situational factors are really, really important. And as a matter of fact, these two transformational as well as charismatic leadership, they don't really have these two. They don't really have these situational factors as significant, well-explained factors to change their basically result or the consequences that they may create at the end of the day. Guidelines for transformational leadership. There are some, as usual, at the end of each chapter, we have this part, which like what are the guidelines for transformational leadership, how you can apply it, how you can get the best result out of this type of leadership. First of all, articulate a clear and appealing vision. You know, one of the most important steps in any leadership, regardless of whether it's transformational or not, is coming up with a very, very clear vision and an appealing vision in a way that is different from typical vision that anybody can have as a normal follower. And then beside that, trying to articulate that in a way that your followers can be inspired. This is really, really important. What do I mean by that? Articulation means what as a thinking or thought is in the mind of the leader is one thing, but how this leader can transform and transit those words, those thoughts to the words actually is another side. So articulation of a clear and appealing vision is a very, very important factor in any transformational leadership. The second issue is explain how the vision can be attained. Again, after knowing what is the objective, what are the main strategies, what are our main goals, vision, and mission, we really need to know how to reach those basic goals or hierarchical goals. Very simple. For a transformational leader, it's really important to give a very good navigation and guidance to the followers to reach those specific goals and basically strategies as well. To obtain them, how to obtain them is really, really important and has to be explained perfectly, described by the leader to be able to help them to reach those visions, objectives, and goals. The third part as a guideline for transformational leadership is act confident and optimistic.